Hi YouTube, it is Willow here, and I'm here to do a little video today on how to combat candida, and in particular how to combat candida when your body is already damaged by a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. Okay, and so these are just a few little tips that I wish I had had when I started trying to combat the candida problem that I did not have. So learn from my errors, learn from my mistakes, learn from my candida misery, and and hopefully you'll have a better time of it. Okay, so candida, what is candida? Candida is a yeast overgrowth, and it's very often associated with antibiotics, because what antibiotics do is they not only kill the bad bacteria in your body, they also kill the good bacteria in your body, and especially in the digestive tract. So they basically just kind of mess up the balance of your digestive system. And when that happens, candida is opportunistic, and it takes that opportunity to overgrow, to create an overgrowth. And yeast overgrowths are nasty, nasty, nasty. They're quite tricky to get back under control at times. Again, especially if your digestive system has been damaged, as it often is in people who have been poisoned by fluoroquinolone antibiotics. I've done a number of videos on fluoroquinolone antibiotic toxicity syndrome, fluoroquinolone antibiotic poisoning, so I won't go into that extensively, but I was poisoned by the fluoroquinolone antibiotic Cipro almost 10 years ago, and it has been quite a journey to try to get back to any type of daily function and health. It's a daily battle, a daily struggle. And so one of the many symptoms of fluoroquinolone antibiotic toxicity syndrome is candida and yeast overgrowth. Okay, so basically the symptoms of candida or yeast overgrowth are also quite varied, but some of the telltale signs that you have a yeast overgrowth are yeast infections in women, sinusitis, chronic sinusitis, athlete's foot or thrush. Thrush is yeast on your tongue. Some of the more, maybe more subtle symptoms are aches and pains. So joint aches, aches in your tendons and connective tissue. Now this is something that's also a problem for fluoroquinolone antibiotics in general, not necessarily related to candida, but the symptoms show up in a similar way. Itchiness, that is a terrible, terrible symptom of candida that can honestly drive you nuts. So all over your body, you can have itchiness that is just, sort of driving you around the bend. Fatigue, and this is like, kind of fairly intense fatigue, like debilitating fatigue often. Brain fog, that's another symptom of candida overgrowth. And so brain fog being just feeling like you're in a bit of a fog and you're having trouble remembering things, you're having trouble speaking at times, finding words. It's kind of scary. Blood sugar problems, rashes, so rashes on your skin and kind of flaky skin, things of that nature. Itchy, this is kind of gross, itchy and wet or crusty ears. That's what happens to me. This is kind of I think maybe a rare-ish symptom. I haven't seen a lot of people complaining about this, just a few. But yeah, your ears will get really itchy, and if it's really bad, they'll start getting like fluid in them, and they can also get plugged off with fungus, basically with candida or yeast. Depression or anxiety or other mood changes. That's another symptom of candida. So basically it's, there are a few ways that it can show up, but it is a not very fun condition. And again, it's sort of rooted in an imbalanced digestive system. The good bacteria is gone. The bad bacteria, the yeast has kind of set up shop in your system. Okay, so when you first start doing research online, which of course that's usually where people first go, right? When you first start doing research online, you'll see a lot of anti-candida diets, and you'll see a lot of language like, annihilate candida, candida busting diet, attack candida, get rid of candida. And so it's a very kind of aggressive protocol that most people are putting out there on the web. And maybe that does work for some people, and especially maybe that does work for people who aren't systemically poisoned by a fluoroquinolone antibiotic. But I severely messed myself up by going too hard, too fast with the anti-candida. And so again, I'm a cautionary tale. So I sort of listened to the letter to these anti-candida protocols, which advise going to a severely carb-restricted diet. They suggest strong natural antifungals and using multiple natural antifungals. And they also suggest combining that with probiotics. So unfortunately for me, this is the protocol that I started trying to use to combat the candida symptoms that I was having. And like I said, it completely messed me up. So going too low carb in my diet caused severe hormone disruption. My period stopped. I was extremely fatigued all the time, like could barely, this is beyond the usual fatigue of fluoroquinolone poisoning. This is like, can barely drag yourself through a day type of fatigue. And yes, I know, in the acute stages, that's how fluoroquinolone poisoning is as well. But this is, something extra. I was feeling cold all the time. I couldn't get warm. Just nasty, very, very debilitating. I also used the antifungals, and that just threw me into a complete tizzy. I was getting crazy rashes. Ultimately, what ended up happening was I kicked off severe food sensitivities. That's another thing you can do when you dramatically change your diet. That's something that can be kicked off through this very severe anti-candida diet. So I kicked off severe food sensitivities, and I started getting cellulitis infections on my face, which are basically these like gross red infections that you then have to get more antibiotics to fix. Not a fluoroquinolone, but I used amoxicillin. Thankfully, that cleared up the cellulitis. And again, it did not respond to natural remedies. I was terrified to go for antibiotics for this infection, and I was trying to use natural remedies like garlic oil and oil of oregano and things like that, and it had spread to like half of my face, and it was starting to go up into my eye. So at that point, I was like, okay, it's time to see if we can get some antibiotics for this. So basically, and those cellulitis infections were kicked off when I tried to reintroduce dairy and grains. And I still to this day cannot eat dairy or grains. They also suggest putting in probiotics, a strong probiotic, right? Again, probiotics is something that you can have a bad reaction to, especially if your body is so stressed and so distressed and your organs are already kind of congested and sluggish and not working ever so great, which is often the case with fluoroquinolone poisoning. So the overriding idea that I would like to put out there is that we always have a certain amount of yeast in our systems, in our bodies. It's natural to have a certain amount of yeast in our systems. And so we're not actually looking to eliminate the candida, attack the candida. When you attack the candida fights back, and basically can get worse. It can go systemic and go throughout your body, and your symptoms can actually be just as bad or worse when you're in this anti-candida attack mode, right? So we are not looking to attack the candida or annihilate the candida. We're looking to bring it back into a healthy balance, right? We're looking to moderate our diets, and we're looking to add in gentle antifungals, gentle probiotics, and moderate those things so that our systems can come back into a state of balance, right? And health. So the anti-candida diet, what is the anti-candida diet? Basically, it's a very low carb diet. Like I would say the one that's most, lauded is extremely low carb. Now, again, that can be dangerous because extremely low carb diets have been found to cause hormone disruption in some people. especially in women. Okay, there have been studies done on teenage girls with low carb diets, and I think it was like 30 or 40% of them had menstrual difficulties, and many of those had complete cessation of their periods. Okay, so we don't want to throw our hormones out of whack as we're trying to combat this candida situation. And this is what I found in my health recovery, is that if you go too hardcore on trying to address one issue, you're often going to kick up another issue, right, that's equally as bad, because everything's connected in the body, right? So basically you can't sort of focus solely on one area without other areas going out of whack. If you go to the doctor, if you go to the medical establishment with candida problems, they are most likely going to try to prescribe you a pharmaceutical antifungal. And I would absolutely advise, of course, it's up to you, but I would advise against that. Because again, they can cause liver damage, and they can cause liver damage even in healthy people. So particularly for people who have fluoroquinolone damage, I would not suggest it. The liver, what happens when so there's a process called candida die-off, and that's so when you're restricting your carbs, when you're putting in the antifungals, when you're taking the probiotics or eating probiotic food, what happens is, the candida starts to die off. And when candida dies, when the yeast cells die, they let off a toxin into our bodies. And so our livers have to process that toxin, right? So that's another layer of detoxification that the liver is having to do that can cause, problems and can cause liver congestion. And so some of the symptoms of liver congestion are nausea or lack of appetite, dark circles under your eyes, puffiness under your eyes, fatigue, night sweats combined with chills, like maybe night sweats or chills. What else? Again, sort of like tendon or joint pains. Changes in urination, so urinating more or less than you normally would. Difficulty sleeping, so waking up for like stretches of time at night or waking up repeatedly at night. Anyway, these are some of the signs of liver congestion, and that's something that we want to avoid as well, because if you're fluoroquinolone damaged, you most likely, one of the reasons they say that people have bad reactions to fluoroquinolones is that there's a detoxification pathway in the liver that is different from other people's. And so we're not able to detox this hardcore devil drug that is called a fluoroquinolone antibiotic, and probably also other pharmaceuticals. So if you've had crazy reactions to other pharmaceuticals, there's a possibility that this detoxification pathway is mutated or different from other people's. Then just in general, fluoroquinolone damage is going to stress your liver, your kidneys, your organs, because, just because of the poison that your body's having to work out of its system. And also it's also processing damaged cells, right? And fluoroquinolones are known to damage the mitochondria in cells, which is what replicates healthy cells. So when that's damaged, we're just backed up with damaged cells and toxins and stuff, and we don't want to add to that load. Okay. So we have to sort of avoid candida die-off, not only just because it's, not good for the liver, but because it feels like hell. Candida die-off feels like you're dying. Okay. It feels like you're dying off. Again, just like feeling sick, feeling like you have the flu, no energy whatsoever, again, digestive issues, food sensitivities, all kinds of nastiness, and then again a flare up of candida symptoms. So whatever symptoms you're having from the candida, if you're in die-off, often those will be flared up as well. So we want to avoid that. Like the plague. So the anti-candida diet in general is pretty intense. And even though I'm not on the anti-candida diet per se, the recovery diet I'm on, this diet I've prescribed for myself for recovery from fluoroquinolone poisoning is similar to the anti-candida diet. And so anti-candida diet is basically, again, restricted carbs, so no grains or very little grains, no processed foods, no refined sugar, no alcohol, no caffeine, no potatoes, no fruit except for lemons and limes when you're in the very restricted diet. Or then you can start adding in, again, if your hormones are starting to go out of whack, you're starting to feel really terrible, you can add in a little bit of low glycemic fruit, which is berries and green apples primarily. And I would also suggest so probiotics are kind of a mixed bag for me. So I've had periods where probiotics were helpful to me, and I've also had periods where they've kicked off really bad symptoms. So what I do is I eat raw, unpasteurized sauerkraut. That is my probiotic that I eat. And so far, I think that it's working. There are a number of natural probiotics out there. Unfortunately, a lot of them involve sugars and yeast and fermentation and things that may or may not be so good for the candida situation. But like I said, raw sauerkraut is what I use. And I would also, again, I would sort of guard against the pharmaceutical antifungals because of the potential for liver damage and because of the potential of it just being way too intense for your system to process. And so natural antifungals there's a number of them, but the ones that I've used are coconut oil, garlic, and oil of oregano. And what I find is that those are potent enough. Those are almost too potent at times. So basically what you're doing is you're just kind of gently bringing your body back into a healthy balance with the candida. You're making friends with the candida. You're not destroying the candida, right? You're coexisting with a healthy amount of yeast in your system. And the way that you do that is by moderating your diet. And so basically what happens is that I have periods where I'm feeling pretty good. I don't have any of the symptoms. I don't have the itchiness. I don't have the fatigue. What I usually find that happens first is probably the itchy ears. If it's really bad, I'll start. You can see right now maybe I have a little patch of it right here. I get it on my eyelids for some reason. I also get candida, terrible candida rat. If I really don't listen and I'm just I'm stressed or I'm busy or something and I'm eating too many carbs, I will get terrible rashes under my armpits that are just about drive you nuts. What else happens? Yeah, the aches and pains, that kind of stuff starts kicking up. What else goes on? The back of my scalp gets a little itchy here. So you just have these little annoying places where things will start to flare up a little bit, and then you have to bring it back under control. Now, I somewhat foolishly decided to try to drink coffee after a long period, after a 4-year period of not drinking coffee. And caffeine is bad for candida. So that's basically what has kicked off this most recent flare. It's a flare and subside situation. So again, you're bringing it back under control, you're moderating it. But then if you kind of let up on the reins a little bit, have a few treats, and treats could just be eating a potato. Like that's the level of treat we're working with here. Or again, a cup of coffee, a couple of cups of coffee in a week. That would be, enough to kick off the candida when your system is already so very sensitized. So it's sort of a daily moderation type of thing. And luckily, as I say, I find that the diet that's best for me for fluoroquinolone poisoning is sort of coinciding with the diet that's keeping my candida under control, which is low moderate carb diet is what I'm on. I can't go on an extremely low carb diet. I absolutely could not do keto. Absolutely not. So, I mean, my hormones would just be, I would be non-functional if I were doing that. I would not be menstruating. Things would be very out of whack. So I have to do, like I say, moderate carb. And so when I'm on the most restricted diet that I'm on, what I usually eat in a day is lettuce salad with other raw vegetables, with a salad dressing that is usually olive oil, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of lemon juice, and a little bit of black pepper. Be careful about black pepper because that can also cause problems for people. Along with eggs, organic eggs, a green apple, usually have a green apple with some peanut butter and a few pecans on top. That's kind of my little treat. Throughout the day, I drink tons of filtered water. I have a Berkey water filter, as I've mentioned in many of the other videos, that filters my tap water, and it takes out a ton of toxins, pretty much everything that you need to have taken out, including Cipro and other fluoroquinolone antibiotics. Our waterways are unfortunately awash with fluoroquinolone antibiotic residue, so drinking tap water is definitely no for that reason, but also for the chlorine, potentially the fluoride, heavy metals, any other pollutants or toxins that could be in the water. So I drink lots of filtered water with lemon juice squeezed in it. That keeps the body alkaline as well. Eating lots of vegetables is the other way to keep your body alkaline. So it's not an easy diet to adopt. That's absolutely true. But it is the diet that keeps me feeling as good as possible. It keeps me as functional as possible. And it keeps my symptoms down. I don't think I'll ever be at a time where I do not have symptoms. But I'm able to moderate them through diet, water, rest, gentle exercise, getting some sunshine, but not too much sunshine, because fluoroquinolones also create phototoxicity. They also increase the risk of skin cancer. Unfortunately, they're devil drugs, kids. They're devil drugs. So the overall message of this video is, and sorry, this has gone a little bit longer than I was expecting, as usual. So wordy, is that yes, you want to be gentle with your anti-candida diet. You want to be gentle with bringing your body back into a friendly relationship with candida, as opposed to a pathological relationship with candida. Again, we don't want to be attacking, annihilating, eliminating, because you can't do that. There's always going to be a certain amount of yeast in your body. And so gentleness on your liver, gentleness on your kidneys, gentleness on all the systems of your body. That's ultimately what we want, because fluoroquinolones are so violent to our systems, have caused so much damage to our systems, that we want to counteract that by being very loving and gentle to ourselves and even to candida. So anyway, I hope that will help you all to avoid some of the pitfalls that I've come into with going way too hardcore. Definitely try one antifungal at a time. If you can add a second natural antifungal in, more power to you. But I at this point, they have a very strong effect on me, and I can only take them sort of sporadically, not every day, definitely not multiple times a day. And like I say, a little bit of sauerkraut I tolerate quite well. So that's what I use for probiotics. But of course, I'm not suggesting any one particular program for anyone. I'm just telling you what has worked and what hasn't worked for me, and you can figure out the rest for yourself. Hi, one thing I realized I forgot to mention in the anti-candida diet is no dairy, and that's a big one. One of the other symptoms of candida overgrowth is being mucousy and just having a lot of mucus-related problems. And dairy is one of the things that that is known to cause mucus, and also again just exacerbate candida, feed candida. So that's another thing that you would like to take out or drastically reduce if you are trying to combat candida.